Good evening, members of council and viewing audience who've joined us on YouTube. We'll call the meeting to order. Before we start, I'd like to read our land acknowledgement statement. We acknowledge that the ground on which we live is the traditional territory of Caldwell First Nation, of the Three Fires Confederacy, and the original people of Point Pelee and Pelee Island and its surrounding lands and waters, and that of the Huron-Wendat and Wyandot peoples. We recognize and respect the First Nations who are stewards of the land and waters of Turtle Island and who have embraced the stewardship since time immemorial. We would also like to acknowledge the contributions of other nearby First Nation communities and all original people across Turtle Island. We'll take a moment for silent reflection and then we'll stand for playing of our national anthem. Thank you. Adoption of agenda, that the May 24th, 22 regular council meeting agenda be adopted as presented. Moved by Deputy Mayor Malash, support Councillor Adichio Spagnolo. All in favor? That carries. Thank you. Any disclosures of pecuniary interest? Seeing none, they'll be noted. Adoption of minutes, the regular meeting council held May 10th, 2022 be adopted as presented. Moved by Deputy Mayor Malash, support Councillor Carrick. All in favor? It carries. Thanks. Mayor's comments. I have a couple. Good evening, everyone. There are a few activities in the upcoming events to share with you tonight. The newly constructed LaSalle Dog Park opened recently and is located near the Public Works Building. And the splash pad at the Vollmer Complex also opened this past weekend for the season. This coming Sunday, May 29th, we are holding the first LaSalle Night Market of the year. Join us at the LaSalle Civic Center from 4 to 8 p.m. for live music, many vendor booths, and even Captain Strawberry this time around. We also have free outdoor movie night on Friday, June 3rd at the LaSalle Civic Center, hosted by the Interact Club of LaSalle and the town of LaSalle. The featured movie is Disney's Up, and it starts at dusk. Members of council are also looking forward to this year's LaSalle Strawberry Festival. Mark your calendars for June 9th to the 12th for an exciting weekend at the Vollmer Complex. So lots of outdoor things to look forward to in the coming weeks and all summer long. Hope we see you there. Thank you. We have no presentation or delegations, no public hearings. We have reports. The LaPaine Drain request for minor improvement and appointment of engineer. Jonathan.
Thank you. Good evening, Your Worship and members of council. So we have had a request for a minor improvement under the Drainage Act for the LaPaine Drain. This comes from the owner of the property known as the Silverleaf Development, or you might know it as formerly as the Gurlow Development. So a minor improvement under the Drainage Act is a bit new, a bit of a new process to the Drainage Act, but it's intended to speed up the process a bit when the project only has one owner that it affects, both land-wise and from a cost perspective. So all the work is on this property and all the cost is borne by this owner. So it does speed up the process a little bit in that way. We still have to appoint an engineer to do a report to the satisfaction of the town and to the Conservation Authority. So we're recommending the appointment of Dillon Consulting to do this work and continue on with the project. Available for any questions.
Any questions?
No.
I have one. I know he's hot to go and start development. Can he start any development or infrastructure work until this is approved that doesn't affect this area?
No, this is tied into part of his application through the Planning Act. So this is one of a number of things he's working through that process. So he can't start just yet, but hopefully in some number of months he can.
Okay, thanks for the clarification. Council's pleasure. Moved by Councillor Desjardins. Or Councillor Dicho Spagnolo, all in favor? That carries. Thank you. Strawberry Festival road closures. Ms. Finaro.
Good evening, Your Worship and members of council. The purpose of this report is to advise of the necessary road closures to execute the 2022 Strawberry Festival. These closures are in keeping with the same closures from the previous festival that was held at the Balmer Complex in 2019. So closing Mike Raymond Drive from Diot up until the bus loop from Monday, June 6th until Sunday, June 13th. And then Front Road from Morton to Sacred Heart Drive from 9 a.m. until about noon on Saturday, June 12th for the parade.
Thank you. I think everybody's looking forward to attending that again after a 2-year hiatus. Council, any questions? Council's pleasure. Moved by Councillor Dicho Spagnolo and support Deputy Mayor Malash. All in favor? That carries. 2022 Financial Outlook and Risk Report. Mr. Langlois.
Good evening, Your Worship, members of council. So the report before you is a newly created report. It's a little different than the quarterly financial report that we present every 3 months. The quarterly report basically explains our history and our past and how we're doing compared to our budget. And this new report is just looking at items that have come up that were unexpected and different risks moving forward into future years. As we all know, there's a lot going on the past couple of years with COVID, the current crisis in Russia, and also the rate of inflation and supply chain issues. So all of this combined, it's kind of the perfect storm that has created many unknowns and many financial risks moving into the future. I've elaborated on these throughout the report, so I'm not gonna reiterate everything that's included in the report, but I will touch on probably the most significant risk that we have, which is the rate of inflation. And it's not just affecting our municipality, it's affecting all municipalities, the province, the country, all businesses, and even the entire world. So we're not the only ones. April 2022 over April 2021, the consumer price index and inflation has risen 6.8%. That was just announced the other day. Some other examples that I can give that are significant are the price of natural gas has went up 22%. Obviously, oil and other fuel costs have increased 64% year over year. And then one that everyone can relate to is food. It doesn't affect us that much as a municipality, but that's went up 8.8% year over year. So, you know, these are extraordinary. Over the past number of decades, the average rate of inflation's hovered around 2% annually. It has allowed us to be pretty accurate in our forecasts and keeping the municipal tax rate and user fees fairly low, and has allowed us to really accurately forecast our budgets into the future years. But given all these different risks mentioned throughout the report, and who knows, inflation could continue to rise rapidly, which is an unknown. We'll closer to our 2023 budget, we'll have a better idea of understanding where we'll end up. But it is definitely going to put pressure on our budgets, user fees, and taxes and moving into the future, especially if we want to maintain the same levels of service that we're currently providing and continue to roll out the initiatives that we've began to roll out, such as our waterfront project and our fire master plan projects. So with that being said, you know, we're not the only one in this boat. as I mentioned before, and I typically don't speak for other municipalities, but I'd be fairly confident in saying that unless there's other municipalities are receiving a substantial funding that the town of LaSalle is not receiving or experiencing extraordinary savings in some area, it would be very difficult to maintain a 0%, even 0 to 2 to 3% tax rate increase with the information known at this point in time, with keeping the service levels consistent with what they are now. You know, if the price is going up 6.7%, the money has to come from somewhere to fund that. We have been lucky. I will note a couple things. We have been lucky. Our OCIF funding has increased just shy of $1 million. That was announced. So that's great news. That's really going to help us in 2023, relieve some of these pressures. And then as well, as mentioned in the report, over the past number of years, we've built up our tax stabilization reserve. And typically the tax stabilization reserve is used to fund unexpected, extraordinary one-time expenditures. So we've built that up. It's just shy of $5 million. It stands at $4.6 million currently. Typically, we wouldn't use that to offset inflation because inflation occurs every year. We would use it for items such as our waste collection costs that have went up $557,000. We could typically maybe phase that increase in over 3 years and cover the difference with the drawdown of the tax stabilization reserve. With the organics collection, which will be rolled out beginning in 2025, that cost of the town is going to range from $365,000 to approximately $800,000, depending on which option is chosen. This could also help smooth that increase out by funding the difference by the tax stabilization reserve over a number of years. So there is some plans, and we are at an advantage compared to many other municipalities because we've been successful in building up that reserve over a number of years. But with that being said, there is still significant challenges, and unfortunately, well, fortunately, we have been successful with our asset management plan and building that up over the years significantly, as was presented during our budget sessions. But with the rate of especially inflation related to infrastructure is increasing well over 10% for the past couple of years, we're not closing that gap as fast as we'd like because inflation, we're basically covering inflation with that additional money that we've put in there. But we're going to continue to build that up. We're going to, there's always bumps in the road, and we just got to find another route to get to where we want to get. And we'll keep council posted as we move forward and as we learn more information about some of these risks and challenges and inflation rates and whatnot. And I just wanted to make council aware of these challenges well in advance of our 2023 budget and beyond. And I'd be happy to answer any questions if there are any.
Thanks for the warning. 2 to 3% minimum. Council Deputy Mayor Malash.
Thank you, Mayor Bondi, through you to Dale. I think it's a great report. It's very helpful to give us kind of that information to share with the public and talk about the concerns that we're going to face over the next few years. But I think the biggest one is still that impact reassessment that we keep kind of getting pushed year after year after year. Have they given us any more information? I know at one point we're like 2022, clearly that's not happening. Are we thinking 2023 we're looking at these reassessments? And with the very large increase most areas are going to see, I noticed that you mentioned a different way of billing or coming up with municipal taxes. Is there a discussion about that?
There is no discussion as of yet. That's just, it could happen. We haven't, every time I get the opportunity to speak to MPAC or anyone at the province in this field, I ask the question, and it is unknown every point in time. I do know that at a minimum, it will be 2024 budget that'll be rolled out. So 2023, there will still be no change in everyone's assessed value of their homes. Now, with that being said, that's not necessarily a bad thing because any change in our levy will be equally distributed to every property. Whereas when there is an assessment change, if the increase isn't proportionate, which it won't be. Not every house value or property value went up the same. Some people are going to have a more significant change in their tax bill and some will have a less significant change. So at this point in time, I do not have any information on when that will occur or if they're going to change their method.
Thank you. Yeah, that I kind of assumed that was the answer I was going to get, but that is obviously a concern I hear from our residents is they're expecting these large increases and it's very hard to explain to them how the municipality is going to offset that. And then when you do explain it to them and you look at them and you ask them where they live and you're like, oh, you're the older part of LaSalle. Yeah, you guys are going to get, unfortunately a little bit more of an increase, most likely due to the value of your homes. And I think that's going to be the hardest thing for us over the next few years is preparing those residents more so for the increase that's coming their way. So I think that's something, if you can just keep us informed and any information you have from Impact, that'd be appreciated. Thank you.
Absolutely. Just one more comment on that. There is a common misconception that I hear, the value of my house went up 200%, so my taxes are going to go up 200%. That's not true. When it is reassessed, there will be a tax rate change to offset a large portion of that. But your bill may be higher than someone else's.
No questions? I have one. Oh, Councillor Carrick.
Through your deal, just going back to the garbage pickup and the refuse pickup. So if you're looking 3 year or a couple years from now, we're looking at $1 million basically between the two, right? Maybe a little bit more. So that's roughly over 3% tax increase that would happen almost immediately, but you're talking about reserves. I just want to make sure that we're compartmentalizing where we're getting this from so that the residents aren't saying, well, just that alone is 3% on my tax bill. And then everything else you're talking about inflation and all other stuff. So we're not looking at a 10% tax increase. So I think it's important that we just clarify that what we have, the tools we have again, to make sure that that's not going to happen. Because as soon as you start hearing that stuff, a lot of people, residents don't see how that works. So I just want to hear it from you again, if that's okay.
Absolutely. So I'll just use the example, round number, $600,000 increase in our garbage collection costs. So for 2023, maybe we'll increase it by 200,000 and the $400,000 difference will be funded from the tax stabilization. The following year, we'll increase it another 200,000. So that'll be 400,000. We'll fund $200,000 difference from the tax stabilization. Then the following year, we increase another 200,000 so that the full amount's funded. So it gradually phases it in. So we're not taking the brunt all in the first year.
So just a quick follow-up. So that the stages are set. So we still got to get to roughly $1 million, all right? So
That's
that's
correct.
going to be maybe a 5-year plan. Is that what we're thinking?
That's correct. Because once 2025 hits, the garbage collection should be fully funded. And that's when we start gradually phasing in the cost of organics collection over 3 or 4 years.
Okay, because it does make you a little nervous because that's only one aspect of what we have to deal with. So that's good that you guys are on top of that. Thank you.
Just a comment. We are dealing with an award-winning budget team over there. So it's on the record. How many years in a row? 7?
Something like that.
I have one question. Can you tell us where the good news is in this report?
Well, I guess you could say it's good news and bad news, as mentioned in there. Well, the interest rate is going up significantly as we've experienced. We do have a significant amount of funding in our bank accounts right now, and that's the interest earned is all based off the prime rate. So as interest rate goes up, we're going to earn more interest revenue. On the negative side of that, the cost of borrowing is also going up. And then, we talk about the demand, all the good news in the news recently of all the business and coming into the region, which is going to continue. I expect it to continue to put high demand on the housing market, which will result in hopefully significant growth. And then again, as I mentioned in the report, not all growth related revenue goes to the bottom line. As we grow, we do need to enhance the scope of our services, which costs money, but there is a portion that does help that does go to the bottom line. I'm just not 100%.
Thank you. I just wanted to let you know that it's not always doom and gloom, even though you're forecasting minimum 2-3%. I mean, we're not done halfway through the year. We don't know what inflation is
Yeah.
going to be. So you don't know what
Yeah.
you're dealing with next year.
Yeah, it
Don't
could-
have all the information.
Yeah, if the government comes out with some special kind of new funding, that could help offset it as well as the provincial or federal government. There's lots of factors. We're really early at this point in time, but we just wanted to notify council. I cannot predict a tax rate increase at this point in time.
And hopefully we'll continue to have good results on our grant applications.
Absolutely.
Yeah, thank you. Councillor Desjardins, any questions?
No, actually, it was kind of answered. I just wanted to say, I thought it was a really good report. I liked how you broke it down into the pieces, for the garbage contract and for MPAC and so on. And the idea that we do have the option to reduce our funding, but not eliminate it completely, that we can take a little bit from here and a little bit from there. I think that's another point that, as you just stated, Mr. Mayor, that we have a great finance team who have helped us put some money away for an expensive time of our lives right now. So I think that knowing where we're going even halfway through the year is good. And just thanks for putting the report together and giving us a little bit of a breakdown of where we're at and where we're going to be going. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Desjardins. Council's pleasure. Moved by Councillor Di Spagnolo and support Councillor Carrick. All in favor? That carries. Thank you. Mr. Ferraro, Procurement 2022 first quarter report.
Good evening, Mayor, members of council. The report before you is our first quarter report with respect to our procurements. And it is came about from our recently revised procurement bylaw from last year, where we bring forward all the procurements that occurred throughout the year on a quarterly basis. So as you'll see, there's approximately 7 or 8 procurements that took place in the first quarter, each of which were under budget, save for one. And in that case, a specific council report was brought forward to council on March the 8th to deal with that issue. So if there's any questions, I'd be happy to answer them.
Council questions. Council's pleasure. Moved by Deputy Mayor Malash, support by Councillor Akpata. All in favor? That carries. Thank you. Executive Assistant to the Director of Council Services Clerk. Sorry, that was prepared by the Executive Assistant to the Director of Council Services Clerk, the 2022 Q1 Council Meeting Attendance Report. Moved by Deputy Mayor Malash, support Councillor Carrick. All in favor? That carries. Thank you. Summary of reports to council. Moved by Councillor Carrick, support Deputy Mayor Malash. All in favor? That carries. Thank you. Okay, on the bylaws. 6 bylaws, all 3 readings. Councillor Desjardins and Councillor Di Spagnolo, all in favor? That carries. Thank you. Any committee matters? Questions or statements by council members? Notices of motion. Confirmatory bylaw. All 3 readings, Deputy Mayor Malash and Councillor Di Spagnolo. All in favor? That carries. We have the schedule of meetings. Meeting adjourned. Thank you. Any viewing audience on YouTube?